So, the process of learning is about everyone and also about everything around us. And when we learn something from everyone and everything around us, I think the true learning happens. And when it comes to the young learner, I think the responsibility of an adult increases in a way that there is a need of learning together, where we share things and the process of learning becomes the best way. But when we come to the current context or the current scenario of Indian education system, largely we see that the parents or the adults think that it is the sole responsibility of the school, which I think is not true. And uh, and to understand this scenario, we will be discussing the subject from a viewpoint of Dr. Maria Montessori and her pedagogy. And today I am really honored to have Mukta Mahapatra with us. We are doing this series on Project Nomad, and we call it Nomad Podcast. So I would like to welcome Amuktadi, as I call her. And we will have informal chat on Maria Montessori, the pedagogy, about Amuktadi as well, how she got introduced uh, to the education sector, how she grew her interest in children, their learning process, and so on. So, Amudi, welcome to the show, or I don't know what to call this, but we would like to call it a deeper conversation series where we are bringing in individual stories of people and also organization working in the field of education in different ways.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So, to start with, I would like to go back to your childhood days. Uh, I would like to know the story of your childhood, where you grew up, about your family, about your siblings, and then slowly we can come to the time when you really got interested in education, learning, teaching, how all of those things happened.
Yeah, long story, but let me try to be brief about it. I grew up in a joint family where we were maybe about 20 of us adults in an intergenerational kind of a household. And we were all very convivial, happy kind of a family. And there are no anxieties or tensions around there. My first 5 years, actually, I grew up with my grandparents in the village. And my sister was there for a few years. But after that, she went to school into the city. My parents were living in Chennai, in Madras, as it was called at that time. And I was alone in the village. And I think that still stays with me because I was the only child and at home. And there was a huge house. I mean, our house was quite large in the village. And there was nobody else to play with me or anything. So I felt it gave me a kind of a strength and a confidence. And I would relate to people as equals. Only my grandmother and grandfather were there. And we had servants, of course. And in the city also, it was a joint family. It's like a contrast. Here there was just me alone. And then when I went to the city, we were one huge family. So there were many children then in Chennai, in our household. And I was one of the youngest. But my parents had many friends and their children used to come, we used to play. So very often my parents and their friends used to go out and their children, sometimes my age or a little younger than me, they used to be with me. And even if my older sisters were there, they were not considered to be, taking care of them. Somehow the children came to me and I also responded to them. So one child specifically, Tinku, he used to call me Amu Didi. And they're from Bengal, Calcutta. And the whole family used to call me Amu Didi. His grandparents also.
Oh.
because I was his Didi.
Yeah.
So I think we became friends, and he used to follow me around and all that. And they used to go to Pondicherry. So on the way, they used to drop by in Madras. And through that also other children also, I think, I became fond of. And my brother was a little younger, but we were friends. But I think through these other children that I realized that I liked and I had an affinity for children and being with younger people. From there on, I mean, I was a student in school and I didn't have, not very different from others, I feel. But when I was in the, like, fifth form, we used to call it in school, that was now the, I think, 10th. So suddenly in class, I remember that day, that I wanted to be a teacher. I used to play tennis. That one of those days on the tennis court, I was thinking, oh, should I be a professional tennis player? And then I said, no, I can't be very good in tennis. I can't be the best. And then I wanted to be a secretary. Then in class, the next day or 2 days later, I felt I wanted to be a teacher. And somehow the word Montessori came to me. I don't know, I was 15 years old.
So you have never heard the name of Montessori before?
No, I don't remember where I heard it.
Okay.
I must have, but I don't remember from where. There was a B.Ed college next door in our same compound in our school where teachers were trained. They used to come for practice teaching to our school. And I didn't want to go there. So I wrote to Femina magazine. At that time, it was a popular women's magazine. And sitting in class, I wrote that letter and saying, where will I find a Montessori teacher training? So they wrote back. I mean, it was so nice of them. In those days, no emails, nothing. They wrote back maybe about a month later saying that we don't have they gave me an address of a college. I think it was SNDT or Sophia's. So then I wrote to that college and they wrote back saying, we don't have this course. Please write to this address. And that was a postal address. Because at that time, the Montessori courses were going from one place to the other. So there used to be like 2 years in Hyderabad, 2 years in Bangalore, 2 years somewhere else, Calcutta.
And this was in which year?
This, I wrote, this must be in 69 or 60, 70, something like that.
Okay.
This letter. So when I wrote to them, this postal address, they said, they asked me how old I was. I said, I'm 15. So they said, you become 18 and then you come and contact us. And that was Mr. Houston who had written to me. And so then I did some college and then I wrote back again because I was 15 and then another 3 years later or so. Then I wrote to them, I want to join the course.
So what was your interest or curiosity that made you write that letter, or you wanted to explore Montessori?
I didn't know anything about Montessori. I don't know where I got that word. So I feel that's one miracle of sorts or one mystery. So I could have gone to that B.Ed college, no? It was nice. People were nice about it. It was regulated. But I think something going away. Also, I feel that, I haven't said that before, but now talking to you, see, I'm the third child. So usually they say the third child likes to go out of the family.
Oh, okay.
And find, better pastures outside. So I think that also is something that would have been a possibility. But nothing about Montessori. I didn't know anything about it. So then when Mr. Houston wrote back saying, you come, but I was, the course was starting in July and I was going to be 18 in August.
July, August, next month. Yeah.
15 days. I mean, they were going to start the course on 15th July, and I was going to be 15 days later. I was going to be 18. So they said you can't come July 15th when the course begins. You have to come only on August 1st. So then I tried. At that time, my father found somebody, one of his friends, said, I know somebody who's does Montessori, and I published his book, so you can meet him. So I went and met him at that time. So that's the time I got to know a little more about Montessori before I went for the course.
Wonderful. So that was your first introduction to Montessori. So what kind of a course it was?
It was quite a wonderful course. For me, getting away from home was a big thing because leaving home, it was kind of a sheltered family, at that time. We rarely went by bus and met only people whom our family and friends, etc. It was a wide circle, but still only kind of a protected, closed family friends. So when I went there, it was like an adventure for me. And
it was in Chennai?
No, it was in Ahmedabad.
Oh, so you shipped it to Ahmedabad for the course?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we had to, Bistar Bandke, we had to go to Ahmedabad in a train. And there we were given a place in the hostel. And that place also, location, the course was conducted in Shreyas Foundation. That was connected to Montessori also much earlier. Because they had started, even before Montessori came to India, they had started a Montessori school for their family. The Sarabhai family in Ahmedabad had a Montessori school running, and all their children did Montessori education. And the daughter, one of the daughters, had started the school, Leena Ben, had started the school, Shreyas. And they were following Montessori there.
And wasn't there any particular qualification to do that course in Montessori?
They were saying just pre-university or school.
That is enough?
Yeah, that was enough.
Okay.
At that time.
Okay.
And when we went there were about 150 odd students from all over India and also from abroad. So there were about 30 from Malaysia, Singapore, and another 30 from US, Europe, all over. So it was like an international course, and because Mr. Houston was very popular and he was well known for his the way he conducted the course, people came from all over the world to study with him. So the course was wonderful, and it kind of opened my eyes to what children can be. It also reinforced what I had, just inclination or intuition about children. So by then, my parents had my youngest sister, who's about 13 years younger than me. So she was about 5 or something at that time. So from my theory classes and lessons, my parents had already brought up 4 of us, and she was already 5. But I used to write letters to them how to bring her up.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know how they took that, but I remember writing that they shouldn't scold her, this, that. And the course itself was enlightening for what it taught us. I mean, directly, but also indirectly, being with so many people, being away from home, all that.
So that was your first being away from home. Before that, you never went for such a long time.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And that means your parents have this belief in you that you are going to be a teacher. You have that potential. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then for how long this course went on for?
It was a year's course.
1 year course. Okay. And after that?
Then while I was there itself, we got news that the Krishnamurti school was starting in Madras at that time. So then as soon as we went back, we knew them, of course. My father was in the Krishnamurti Center. And they said, why don't you come and teach? But, this person whom I met through my father earlier, who helped me also to talk about Montessori, etc., he told me come and work as a volunteer in the village school, which he had started for not really village, but a small town in Tamil Nadu, Anamalai. And so because he had helped me to understand Montessori a little bit, and I thought I should learn from a master like him, because he himself had trained under Dr. Montessori when she was in India and living in Kodaikanal. So he had done the primary course and the advanced course, the elementary course, with her. So I felt I had to learn, a little more to learn from him. So I went to Anamalai, and I was a volunteer there, a teacher, and that was a wonderful experience also. So I went there, and they said they'll give me a place to stay and all that. And so I had imagined that, okay, I'll be cooking and all that, and took vessels. I didn't know anything about cooking. But I thought, okay, this is like a romantic thing, going there, setting up house and all that. So, but I went there and they provided all the food, etc. So I used to get up, and at 7 o'clock I used to be in the school and working, making materials. And Vaitana, that was the person's name, he was also up and writing. He was in his 70s, I think, at that time. And he taught me Tamil. Though I grew up in Madras, I didn't know any Tamil because we were a Telugu-speaking family. So he taught me Tamil, and I was in Anamalai, so we heard more Tamil, so I could start speaking Tamil. And this kind of a work situation, getting up early, starting work, and then teaching in the school. Then in the evening again, and there was no going back home. Home was just one street away, but I hardly went there, just to sleep. So we used to make materials, discuss, read, have conversation. All that was happening, and very, very intense kind of a program. So it was like a continuation of my training.
Mid-70s?
Yeah, 73. 73,
okay. Wonderful. And how long this journey went?
I was there for about a year. And then Krishnamurti school had started, so they were getting impatient for me to join. So, and they didn't have a friend of mine who did the course with me, Asha. She joined the school because she was in Madras, but she was going to get married. So then I went and joined the school at that time in 74.
Okay. So you joined Krishnamurti in 74. What happens then?
Then Vaitana used to come there also and guide me. And so the school also created that possibility that he could come and set up the Montessori environment. So in the Krishnamurti Center, at that time we were exploring this possibility, how...
This was the main Madanapalli Center?
No, in Chennai.
In Chennai, okay.
Madanapalli is the Rishi Valley School.
Rishi
that was
Valley
already
School.
established and in the 40s or so. This was in 74. I think they just started in 73, I think. And I joined them in that first year. So we were exploring the possibility of, kind of connecting Krishnamurti's philosophy with Montessori's practices. So, because he spoke about how it can be, but never said how, because he didn't want to get into that how part of it, Krishnamurti. He was only looking at the idea and the philosophy and the principles. But how to make things work? If you want children to have freedom, how do you make it work in a school situation? So for that, I felt Montessori had, shown a path, how to do that. And how to do, say, excellent work. So Krishnamurti focused on that, J. Krishnamurti, the philosopher. So, and how to get excellence suddenly out of the blue, from children. If you leave it naturally, they will do their best and perfectly. But in a school situation, how do we make that happen? So I felt Montessori had answers to many of those and made that pedagogy itself, connected to the philosophy. So we explored that possibility, and I think it worked well for those 2 years.
For 2 years?
For 2 years that I was there. And they continued for a little longer. But afterwards, when others came, they felt Montessori was not the right kind of pedagogy.
Okay. So then after Krishnamurti, what happened? What was your journey like?
When I was in the KFI school itself, we used to have like summer programs for all the KFI teachers. So one summer I had gone to Rishi Valley and I had heard about David Horsburgh at that time. And I was also questioning Montessori at that time. I was thinking, is it meant only for children who are very good children? They follow the rules. Then it's only for them. It's not for children who are themselves, active and this and that. So is it the only way to do things for children? So I was questioning also Montessori. So when I heard about David, I took with she was the head of the school, kind of. She was in the trust. So she and I, Mrs. Santanam and I, went to see David's school, Nilbag. So there, when I went, and I was so charmed by the whole place. It was like a village setup. And wonderful cottages made of mud and brick, no electricity, environmentally friendly. All that we're talking about now about sustainable development, he did that in 72, 73. I think I went in 74, summer. And so then he told me that he's going to start a training program. So I said, then why don't I join? He said, no, there are already 6 people there. So I don't think you can join now. You join next year. I'll continue these courses, so join next year. So I went back to school and I was teaching there. And that became 75. 75 emergency was declared. And our family was a socialist family and influenced by Lohia. My father was. And though we were a zamindari kind of a family, my father kind of was not interested in that kind of a thing. So being a socialist and when the emergency was declared, I don't know how many young people know how it was. At that time, overnight, hundreds of people were arrested right across India.
Reason? Just because they believe in some other philosophy?
Yeah.
Ideas politically?
Because at that time, the Congress party, Indira Gandhi, was in power and she was afraid of losing her prime ministership. So she declared emergency and then arrested all the opposition party leaders. So only George Fernandez had escaped from that net because he was somewhere else. He was in Gopalpur at sea in Odisha actually. So he was on a holiday and that saved him for that night. So somehow I became active through my father and also through more than my father. They had friends, my parents had friends of Snehalata Aunty, Snehalata Reddy and Patabi Reddy. So Sneha Aunty brought George Fernandez home and he said, do you know who he is? I said, no, I don't know. In front of him. So then she explained about emergency and all that. And so then I, just to help her, I used to, and play along. We got involved initially. After that, it became a little more serious. So he used to come quite often. Tamil Nadu was a safe place because DMK was in power at that time. And people from all over, if they wanted meetings, to have meetings, used to come to
Tamil Nadu.
Chennai, Tamil Nadu. So our house became a hub for all that. So it was very like halla gulla all the time. People coming in and out, and mostly political people. So George was hiding. He was underground, and we were helping him. He would write letters to different people, inspiring them, encouraging them to do things and continue protesting. And we used to distribute those letters. We used to cyclostyle.
Oh.
There was something called cyclostyling machine. So we used to cyclostyle those letters and distribute them. So we had a group of friends, activists who were active at that time. And so I felt that I can't do this political work and be in school. It's not fair to the school. And I told them I'd better if I resign. I didn't tell this reason, but I said I'd like to resign. So I resigned after about 2 years and became active in politically.
Politics. Yeah.
And in end of April, I think, that year, 76, my father and I were arrested. And we were 10 days in the police station in Bangalore. And the police station still looks the same. I want to take a photo of it. And luckily for us, the ACP in charge was very kind. And he took care of us. Otherwise, we were hearing stories of how people were being tortured, etc. That was George's brother, Lawrence Fernandez, and others, and many others. And mainly because they wanted to find George, because till then they hadn't found him. So after 10 days in police station, they released me. My father was in jail, in Bangalore jail, for about 9 months. So along with, in Bangalore jail, there was, I think, Dandavate, Vajpayee, Michael Fernandez, many were staying there. Advani, a lot of RSS people, Sindhya, all of them were there. So I feel Janata Party actually was formed there.
Formed there, yeah. Yeah.
With discussions and all the political people, stationed in one jail.
Yeah.
So then I was released. So we had to, then David at that time, I had to join David's school, the training center. And he got afraid.
Okay.
He said, how can I take you? There'll be trouble for me. So then a friend of mine, Nandana Reddy, Snehanti's daughter, she took David and me to the Corps of Detectives, who was actually questioning us and all that. And then he explained that there was nothing against me.
All right.
Then David took me on. He was quite hesitant, but I said, I'm not going to do any politics from now on. And elections were declared, and Janata Party came to power and all that at that time.
Okay. So then the new chapter started in your life, that is David and Nilbagh. Okay. So very briefly, can you talk about the experience at Nilbagh? What was the core learning there?
I think there, Montessori was in a way like deep diving into Montessori. Here, there was an expansion, of all the kind of things we were exposed to, both theory and practice. So practice meant learning crafts, pottery, woodwork, and teaching actually all kinds of children. My course, the Montessori course that I did, was only for 2.5 to 6 year olds. So here we taught right up to adults, and we looked at that. We looked also at theory and had seminars, discussions, and talking in a small group, intensely. So that expanded my whole vision of education also. But I felt that specificity also of Montessori helped me. So when I saw there, when I was questioning, earlier I was questioning Montessori, but when I saw here the whole practice, Montessori again like fell into place. Though I was learning about so many other things, how Montessori understood the child became very clear to me. Like simple things like buying a pair of scissors for a 4-year-old. The people who were doing the course in Nilbag with me, they bought such a big scissors, like 10 centimeters for a 4-year-old. So I said, you don't know the size of a child's fingers, Whereas I think Montessori taught me to be conscious of a child. And not go from theory to child, but from child to theory.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there any discussion between you and David on Montessori's pedagogy?
See, he was a little bit, he read only a bit of it. He didn't know too much of Montessori. And so he reacted quite strongly because in some of her books and writings, she used to talk of religion, Christianity, and how Jesus was, as a young baby, he was the savior. And so how children can be the saviors of the world. So because she was a Catholic, there were a lot of interconnections to religion.
And David doesn't like that.
He was a rationalist and, he was being pragmatic and didn't feel that, though he was a follower of J. Krishnamurti, he was into spiritualism, spirituality, I think, and philosophy, but not into religion. But there was more to Montessori in a sense, no? This was a tiny aspect of her thinking. So we did have, and he would say it's all rubbish. I said, no, there is something to it, and we have to look at other things. So he came from that, that Western rational thinking. Whereas Montessori was, and lived in India, so I don't know whether it was, India also influenced her quite a bit. So she was also spiritual and religious in a different way.
Okay. So after you came back from Nilbag, say for example, how was the balance in you between something new at Nilbag? As you said, it was much wider, right? And on the other hand, you were seeing things or understanding things. Montessori is the way to go forward. So how things were balancing out after Nilbag? Was there a time when you were really confused whether I should go for Montessori or try something new?
I didn't see any contradictory in that, There was no contradiction as such. I felt just some practices, whereas David also focused a lot on material development. Montessori had material. David had mixed age groups. Montessori was mixed age groups. So many kind of, and the individualized kind of learning. So that was both there. So I didn't see contradiction as such. I felt they need to complement each other. That wideness of what I got from Nilbag, the specificity here, both need to go together.
Yeah. I think that's because the things that both Montessori and David was doing was coming very naturally. Because, Hannah? Very true. Okay, so what happened after Nilbag?
After Nilbag, I wanted to start a school. And school for urban poor. That was my idea.
And that was also the idea of David, that after the teacher's training, you have to go to your own place, start a new school, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't think a rural area was my cup of tea. I felt I lived in Chennai and I needed to be there. And that was my natural environment. So I went to Chennai and I was looking for places to start a school. So ups and downs a little bit. And then started for children of fisher folk. on the coast of Chennai. So there, I hadn't worked with the urban poor. So I did take some help from others. And, working with the community. Children were fine, but working with the community is a must, when you're working in that kind of a situation. And the fishermen were very volatile. And any small thing, they'd get into a fight, with each other and discuss, and then they'll have a drink and forget about it. So in that, I had to, discuss with them. I had help from another person who was running an NGO, and he used to come and talk to. And my Tamil also was pretty hopeless, so I needed that. And so then they wanted a school too for their children. There were many government schools around. There was a school run by a trust, by Theosophical Society, just around the corner. But the children didn't feel welcomed there because their clothes were not so great. They felt if they go there, they have to wear proper clothes. And they had to take something with them. Government school also were free. Yeah. But then they had to buy a bag. Everything was costly, So they could not go there. So we discussed with them and even with the children. And we said afternoon school was convenient. So that was a time little free for them. So we had afternoon school in one of the spaces that some friends had given. And we ran the school for fisher folk there for about a year or so. And we also simultaneously or just after started a school in Saidapet for working children. And most of them were working children. And there too we had to work with the community.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest slums in Chennai. And there the youth were very active. So the youth used to decide who's going where and all that. So when we went and asked them about, shall we start a school here for children, for dropouts, for working children, they said there are no dropouts here. There are no working children. So then we accepted that because first day we don't know them. So slowly we started just spending a little more time there. By then there was one more person, a teacher, who said that he wants to be a teacher. So both of us used to go to the slum. And then we pointed out somebody, saying this boy is there, that girl is there. But they had given up on those children. It's not that they were bluffing or anything. They didn't feel they were capable of learning or needed to go to school or anything like that. So like that, we identified many children in that slum. So we said, let's start. But the youth said, why do you want to waste your time on these kids? Start for children who are doing exams. So then we set up a tuition center because we felt that was the need of the community and we should listen to them. So we set up a center for children doing their 10th. So that worked well over the summer and they did well. And we did that for some time. And then slowly when that was successful, we said, why don't we start for these children? So then we started a school and that was what we call Mandara actually. Mandara.
And you were following the Montessori there?
Montessori, Nilbag, everything.
All mixed up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had Montessori materials made of, we couldn't afford expensive materials. So with bamboo we made number rods. With cloth we made many materials. And a friend of mine had stopped her school, so I bought one set from her at a discount. So, but the chowkis or the italic writing, all that was from Nilbag. And having older children also.
So how amazing was creating all study materials for the children? I mean, right now it's all ready-made. You can get it from anywhere. But in those days, everything has to be created with, someone has to create it. So was it challenging? Was it fun? How was it?
It was a wonderful experience to do that because in Mandara, when we set it up, ActionAid was funding it. So we could afford some staff and all that. So we had a carpenter, an artist, and 2 teachers for the school, plus myself. So we had these working children coming in, about 25, 30, again in the afternoon. So interacting with them, seeing their needs, we could develop our own jigsaws and all that, which were contextually relevant also. So we made with wood, paper, cloth, using any material, bamboo. And many of the Montessori materials, we redid it. And this became Mandara Learning Center, and slowly we started the Mandara Resource Center because there was a need again. That teachers wanted. At that time, non-formal education was it's in its heyday. People wanted to do non-formal education in villages, rural areas, or urban. So then field activists and all that used to come to us to see how the school was functioning. So we used to then informally train. So then we got into formally training people. We had a 1-month training program which we developed. And we had some academic person also, and a person to document. So we did a study on working children, and both in Chennai, urban area, and in a rural place. So because we were also supporting through our organization, we were supporting some rural schools also. So we discovered that working children, I felt children working was not a bad thing. Children had that energy. In fact, going to school was worse. If you saw the eyes of children going to school or the eyes of children working, you'll know immediately who was happier. That working children had an energy and a spirit. And they were confident. Whereas in school, they used to be dumb and dull and listless because they were acted upon all the time. Whereas here they were lively, they were contributing to their family, they felt they were members of a society. So I didn't think it was a bad thing to work, but we wanted to see their conditions, and if they were being exploited or whatever, to become, to remove those and to help them overcome those.
Okay. Then for how long the Mandara project went on for?
I was there directly for about 4 years, 80 to 84. And then I joined ActionAid, asked me to join them to help them in their education section. So then the teacher who was there, Thomas, he and another person, Bala, they took over. Thomas ran the school along with another teacher, and Bala ran the resource center. The training changed. It became more development organization, the resource center, rather than teacher-oriented. But it went on for another 3-4 years.
Okay. And what's the next chapter after Mandara?
The next was ActionAid. My first job as such in ActionAid was to evaluate a huge program. I was working with 30 children or so here in Mandara, and then they said, please evaluate a program with 30,000 children who are the beneficiaries. 16 were sponsored and another 30 were being also helped and supported. So with such numbers, I didn't know how to go about it. When I started Mandara, I was about 25 or so, and this was, I think I joined ActionAid when I was 30, officially. They were funding my project. I was to help them here and there. But officially, I started when I was about 30. So ActionAid, I got to know India.
Oh, you traveled
a lot. And by bus and lorry and train and every possible vehicle. And it was a very flat organization. The director was an Englishman, Chris Stokes, who is a good friend still. And one of my friends married him at that time, around that time. And he, in a sense, did not differentiate between, we had designations, etc. But he was open to discussion from everywhere, and treated people equally. I think that was to have in an organization like that, which was, right across India, working in there and being fair and treating everybody equally, from the driver to himself as a director. So he was not pompous or this or that, he was straight and wanted to discuss. If we had a different point of view, he wanted to hear it. And his interest also was education, because ActionAid got sponsored money from individuals in UK, France and Spain at that time. And they were kind of connected to children here. And so they sponsored children here. And so that sponsorship scheme, that structure as such, process, was long-term. So education was better, to give education to children was a better way of handling that money. Otherwise, many other organizations didn't get into education as such, but into health, into development and all that. But Chris felt that educating children would be the best, and that would be standby for them for the future. And so the focus also was on non-formal education, not mainstream. So in a way, ActionAid, I felt, brought in this wave of non-formal education also in the country.
Wonderful. Okay. Then what happened after ActionAid? For how long you worked for ActionAid?
I was there for about 3 years, I think. And Chris wanted to go back to UK. He had left, and then there was a new director. And then the new director, the focus was not education. And I felt then that I was I was not fitting in there with just general kind of development. And wherever I work, I feel I have to, work for children or, do something like that to contribute to that. And also do some intense work, not just waste my time. I mean, I could have continued there and done, but I felt that was not my idea. So I was toying with the idea of leaving. And then a friend of mine from childhood, in a sense, wanted to start a school. So she wanted me to help. So I went there just to help her to find a teacher or this or that, I was in Chennai. Last 1 year of my work in ActionAid, I was based in Chennai. And we were developing something called a co-curriculum. And also I was in charge of Andhra. So I was traveling to Andhra, though I was based in Chennai, and working on this co-curriculum project. So then when she asked me to help with the school, so I thought, okay, I'll be doing something else, but I'll help her along. Then one day they said she and there was a trustee there, their father's friend. He said, why don't you be the principal? Head the school and start the school. I said, I don't know if I can do that, And, I can't commit to that much time. And by then I was, of course, married. And I felt I had to. He was from Orissa. And we wanted to go back to Orissa at that time, sometime or the other. So I said, I have to go back to Orissa sometime, so I don't know how much time I can.
And this school was in
There
which
was no
place?
school as such. It was an idea in Chennai.
In Chennai only. Yeah.
She wanted to start it for her own son.
Okay.
And when they asked me to be the principal, I said, let me think about it. And because I was thinking of leaving ActionAid, so I said, okay, let's see for a year. And they had a vision of not only for their own children, but it was a wider thing to start a good school and all that. And they were also interested in Montessori. And she came through it from some other direction, but she was keen on starting a Montessori school. So then when I said okay, then we had a lot of discussions and about the vision of the school. So whether it was going to be just primary or whatever, but she was keen to make it a full-time school with till a full-fledged school up to high school, and follow Montessori as much as possible right through. So all that was there in place. So I said, okay, we'll start and see where it goes. I'll do for a year, and if I have to go to Orissa, I'll go there. But that 1 year became another 1 year and 3 years, and I was there for about 8-9 years. And set up Abacus I was a first principal. But it was Kamini Sundaram, who was the director, and her father's company who financed it.
So this was the story of Abacus.
Abacus, yes.
In Chennai.
Chennai.
Okay.
So we were looking at names also, how to, what should we name the school? So we sat with a dictionary in my room, and we were saying, and one of the first words I saw was abacus. I said, why not abacus? And she also loved it. So that's how we started Abacus.
Okay, so that was your first school as a principal, and also a place where you can really practice Montessori pedagogy. Wonderful. For 8 long years, you were as a principal working there for 8 long years?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
So we were wondering whether to call it Montessori or not. We had this discussion, and people around us and around me also, friends, colleagues, they said, why should you call it a Montessori? There was no Montessori school in Madras at that time. I think the last school was closed in 68 or 69. Though Montessori lived there. So then they said, you've not done other things. You've been to David's. You worked with other kinds of schools. Why do you need to call it Montessori? But both Kamini and I felt that, we should give credit to Montessori. And we also have to make it contemporary. Somehow at that time, Montessori was kind of old-fashioned, and they were doing it in some not so nice way. So then we said, let's call it Abacus Montessori School.
Okay. Then what was the next chapter after Abacus?
Even in Abacus, I felt what was the adventure there was that till now we only were at the beginning stages, of setting up things. And then, it would we have to do regular work or, that kind of thing.
More administrative stuff than the hardcore.
Yeah, even academics was only for class 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Not higher, only for a few years, then something would change. So I think here we got time and to do on a long-term basis up to high school.
What happened after that?
Because I had to go back to Orissa. Because I had to go back, I had to leave Abacus. My in-laws were not well, and so we said we have to shift sometime, so might as well shift now and take care of them. So we shifted to Bhubaneswar in 95. So in 95, I went to Bhubaneswar. Meanwhile, I had just started, while I was in Abacus, a friend of mine, Nandana, she had a project in Udupi district. So in 95, we started a project there of working with the local panchayat schools and the field activists in about 60 government schools. So we were trying to apply the Montessori approach there. So we trained the government teachers, the field activists in Montessori methods there, in Udupi district. So I used to go there for about 5 days, 10 days at a time train teachers, and then they would practice, and again I'd go back, train teachers. So we did that for over 2-3 years. And so when I went back to Odisha, I continued that, coming back to Karnataka and training teachers here. And that was quite a... I had just told her, let's work with government schools. That's time that we did something there. And she had a panchayat program, so that became possible with the panchayat schools.
Okay. So was there any idea in your mind that, you have to take Montessori to the public schools? Was that the idea?
I mean, I felt, that it had to go to the poor. I mean, that was the starting point. And so where are the poor children? They are in the government schools, the majority. And the poorest of the poor go to urban municipal schools. So I felt that is where Montessori needs to go. And that is where, in a way, Montessori also started her work in the slums of Rome. So I felt, why should it become just only for the well-to-do? Because the material is expensive, all that. So we should try to make material cheaper and take it to the state schools.
All right. So now, if we come to Montessori, we have already talked about 57 minutes. Have you imagined? 50, almost 1 hour. So if you now switch to Montessori, now after that, what
Can I
happened?
say one thing about you? In Bhubaneswar, when I went there, UNICEF had just started a quality education program for government schools. So at that time, that was also a miracle how I got into UNICEF, because I had gone to Rajasthan for some evaluation. And then somebody told me that, UNICEF was looking for people to work on quality education. So in Bhubaneswar also, I had gone to UNICEF. I was in discussion with them. And then they said, come and join us for this program. So that was also an opportunity to take the Montessori or new quality kind of program to the government schools and to the poor. So we set up, I was on a task force there, and we developed a program of quality continuum, like a learning ladder, for government schools, which was taken to like 1,000 schools in every state.
Oh, it was a big project then.
Yeah.